Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Shawn. This is part 3 of our favorite board games of all time. And today we are counting down from 80 to 71.
And picking our top 100 games, I feel like was really, really hard. And even now, there's a few that I've got a sense that I may have left out. So I'm kind of making a note of those, and maybe afterwards we can see, was there any glaring errors that I kind of look back on and think that should have made the cut?
Yeah, definitely. There's been some on your list that I was like, what? No, like, how did I forget that? So I think we will likely have an honorable mention or more like an oops, we missed these. But for now, let's get into the 80s, and I am kicking off this one. So let's get it rolling with my number 80. My number 80 is Survive Escape from Atlantis. And this is, I'm pretty sure, the oldest game on our list. I'm shocked that this came out in 1982 because, man, does it hold up. This is just like a super easy to teach but super mean game that you can play with your family, where you all start out on Atlantis. It's slowly sinking turn by turn, and you got to get off of Atlantis onto one of the safe islands on either side. But the water in between is filled with sharks and whales and sea monsters, and they all want to crush your boat and eat you, and the other players are trying to make that happen, and it's just super fun chaos.
Yeah, and because you can share boats and things like that, there are some times when you like self-sabotage. And the tricky bit is each of your meeples have a point value that's on the bottom, but you can only look at it right at the start. So very quickly, you have no idea really which one of your meeples are kind of worth more.
Yeah, you lose that very fast, and then you like drive a boat into a sea monster to get rid of the other meeples, and then realize it was a 6. I really like the rule that you can look at their bums only once, and then at the end it's just a big crazy surprise. But really a great game that stands the test of time, and that is my number 80.
My number 80 is Tiny Epic Galaxies, and what I like best about it is its super small box. As we've got more and more of a game collection, we've got less and less space for them. So I've really come to appreciate games that don't take up a lot of room. And of the series, I have been back and forwards as to which one is my favorite one, but currently I think it is this one. This one is the one we've had the longest. It's the one that I've played the most. And I find it super replayable. It comes with this big deck of planet cards that come out. So every game does feel a little bit different.
Yeah, and I really like the follow mechanic. I think this is probably my favorite too, and I like dinosaurs, I like dungeons, but I think this one has kind of stayed there at the top of the list. And I really like the follow mechanic of whoever's turn it is rolls the dice, but everyone else can do that thing if they spend this one resource. And I like games where you're involved on everyone's turn.
Yeah, and this one definitely fits that bill. And that is my number 80.
My number 79 is Istanbul. And Istanbul is a really interesting kind of efficiency puzzle, because you're moving around this market and you've got these assistants that you kind of leave behind you as you move. But once you run out of assistants, you got to go back to where they previously were. So you get kind of caught in this back and forth. And how you really win, and what Jess does most times that we play this, is you figure out kind of the circle that you need to do to be able to get the gems from one of the various gem markets. Because it's like as soon as you get 6 or 7 gems or whatever it is, you win the game. So you really got to do that efficiency. And I find that like it kind of, if you can focus, it works well, which is a really interesting puzzle, but a real challenge for me because I always want to do a little bit of everything.
It is really neat with dropping off the assistants, because sometimes you can kind of go back and forwards between even just a couple spaces before continuing on your loop. So because each of the pieces are almost modular, they all come out in a different order every game. It really means that each game is so different for what routes you want to take.
Yeah, the market totally changes every game, and I highly recommend the big box, because I think the game really shines once you throw all of the expansions into it and you've got the full, I think it's 5x5 sized market, which does change up some of those routes as well. But that is my number 79.
My number 79 is Brass Birmingham, and one of the things that I find interesting about this game is anytime that you get resources, it really goes on the central board and becomes available for all players to use. So the premise is it's Industrial Revolution England, and you are building out kind of first the canal era and then the railway network, and you're doing these iron plants and these coal factories and these breweries. But all of those things go out on the board, and either player can use it. So sometimes you want to really make sure that you can use yours, and other times you're kind of hoping the other player uses your stuff to be able to kind of flip your tiles, which is an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, it is. It's a really, it is a really interesting game, but I always think I don't like it. There's just something about this game that I have it in my head that like, I don't think I like that much. And then every time Jess talks me into it, and I really like it. So I'm really trying to remember that it honestly is an excellent game that I like way more than I think I do.
It works great for two. You kind of just use the bottom half of the board. So I'm interested to try it with more players at some point as well. And that is my number 79.
My number 78 is It's a Wonderful World. And It's a Wonderful World is kind of a card tableau resource management game, but a fairly tricky one because you've only got like 4 rounds, I think, is the whole game. And you really think 4 rounds is going to be done so fast, especially in the first round. But by the time you get to that 4th round, you're making so many things and trying to combo those onto so many different cards and build up this big crazy system that you're like amazed by how many cards you managed to get out and how many points you managed to score. And I really like the theme, the dystopian bankers versus warlords theme is just, for some reason, that really resonates with me.
Yeah, it has an amazing look by taking on that theme to it. And I just also love the drafting, kind of break your brain a little bit sometimes too, because you have to pick which cards you're drafting to be able to build those, and which ones you're drafting for the cubes, and which ones you want to kind of hate draft a little bit as well. So lots of kind of interplay with those decisions.
Yeah, it really is great, and the expansions have added a little bit to it as well. I think it's gotten a bit better, especially with the one, I don't remember what they're called, but the one that's in the purple and yellow box adds some really interesting new cards. But that is my 78.
My number 78 is Role Player. And what I like about Role Player is it's really a dice manipulation puzzle. Your goal is to build the kind of stats of a D&D character. So you need to try and have each of the attributes and different things add up to just the right numbers. And it's impossible basically to get them all. But there's something that's super satisfying about every time you kind of place a dice that lets you do an action, and you're kind of getting closer and closer to that perfect number that I really enjoy about it.
I'm surprised by how much I like this game because I haven't played much D&D at all, not generally into dice, but this game does work for me for some reason, and it actually gets a lot better once you add the monsters and minions, because it's nice having, like, you build this guy, but it's nice to be able to actually go fight something with it.
Yeah, having that extra element where it's not just the lead up of the character stats is an excellent addition. So if you like Role Player, definitely recommend the expansion too. And that is my number 78.
My number 77 is Downforce, and this is one of my kind of go-to party games. If you got a group of like 4 or 5 people, this is so good and so fun. And it's a racing / betting game where every time you've got a couple of cars, 1 or 2 cars that are yours, but every time you play a card, it moves a whole bunch of cars. And usually, well, you'd like it to be 1 or 2 of yours, but there's a good chance it's 3 or 4 of the other cars other people have. So you're trying to move them as inefficiently as possible while moving yours as efficiently as possible. Or sometimes you're actually trying to help them win because you've bet on them to win because they got in the lead earlier. So it's this really interesting kind of mix of you want to win, but you also get plenty of points from just betting on the winner. So you're always involved, and I love games where you're always involved.
And this is another one that the expansions have added a lot to it, just because it is a racetrack. And so the expansions are different types of racetracks. And so one of them has like live animals that go on the track, so make it harder to navigate. Another one has jumps where you're jumping over like shark infested waters. So having that variability is great as well.
Yeah, I got a lot of shark games on my list this time. And this is my second one, and really just a terrific racing game. And that is my 77.
My number 77 is Nidavellir, and this is one that we started playing on Board Game Arena and then almost immediately purchased. It's a really fun drafting game. You're drafting the different types of dwarves, and the different colored dwarves kind of combo in different ways to give you your points. So they're trying to figure out what combination you want, given the selection can be quite a challenge. But the physical version is great because the production value is amazing. There's like this coin display case that's like not even needed, and all of that makes it fun to bring out and play.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting because you're just drafting from, at least with two players, from three cards each section of each round. You do three of these each round, and then you add those to your tableau. But you can kind of combo, because if you get one of each kind of dwarf, you get like a super character that you add that gives you different things, and sometimes you can like combo on those combos. So it's really interesting. You want to like diversify, but also specialize at the same time.
And those special ones add a nice variety of trying to make the right combinations work. And so that is my number 77.
My number 76 is Rolling Realms. And what I love about Rolling Realms is just how variable it is. Because in Rolling Realms, you've got a whole bunch of different cards. There's like 11 or 12 cards in the base game, and then they've added a bunch of different ones as well. And each one of those cards represents a different realm, or generally they're kind of based on different Stonemaier properties. But these different realms all work differently, and they all combo differently. In each round, you're using three of them, so you got three totally different things that all combo in totally different ways for like 24,317 different combinations. That math is definitely wrong. But it always plays so differently, and that's so cool. And I also really like that you just write right on the cards, which is I saw that previously with Silver and Gold, but it's such a good way to use cards.
And part of the charm of that as well is this makes it a great game to travel with, because all you need are the two kind of player decks of cards, a couple of white erase markers, and then a couple of dice, and then you're set, and that's all you need. So now we kind of just throw it in our travel bag anytime we're going away for like a long weekend.
Yeah, this is one of our key travel games, and even at home as well. I think this is like the game we've played the second most this year, which actually kind of surprises me. But that is my number 76.
My number 76 is Civilization: A New Dawn. And I never played the older version of this, but I understand that this one does play a little bit faster, which I appreciate.
Quite a bit more streamlined.
So to get kind of a full Civilization experience in maybe just over an hour for two players is fantastic. And the action system I really like, and that is where you have your cards that let you do your actions that get laid out. But the longer they're in there, the kind of higher up they go and the stronger they are. And I believe Arc Nova probably borrowed from this, because this was the first place that I saw it. And it just works so well of when you need to do that action and how strong you need to build it up.
And I think good move on Arc Nova's part, because I do really like that system. And this one, I have played the original, and I do like how this one streamlines it. I like the other Civilization board game and the Civilization video game, but it's nice to be able to do it in such a short amount of time and still get like a decent amount out of it.
Yeah, and with the game ending being kind of when certain goals are accomplished, I always find the ending always comes really quickly, but in a good way. That's always nice when you're kind of like, oh, that went by so fast. And so that's my number 76.
My number 75 is another Civilization game, but a very abstracted one, and this is Hadara. And Hadara is a tableau building card drafting game where you've got a bunch of piles of cards out in the middle, and you take turns kind of around a circle of drafting the different cards. You put them into your tableau, and then they combo in different ways, and you're visiting islands, you're doing all sorts of fun stuff. But it's super, super abstract, and like I could not tell you, other than kind of looking at the box, what the different colors are meant to represent right away. But it doesn't matter, because you still get at least a little bit of that sense, and just the comboing is just really fun. The drafting and comboing just works well together.
Yes, because one of the things for this is if you have more of a certain color, that becomes cheaper to get that color. So you're kind of incentivized to specialize, but they work intertwined enough that you do kind of also need that mix. So trying to work that out in the best way possible is a fun challenge.
But that is my number 75.
My number 75 is Kanban, and this was our first Fattel Lacerda game that we got. And I just really love how interconnected all of the systems are. So it kind of every decision is really important, and how what resources you get in one area is definitely going to affect what you can do in each of the other areas. And the fun thing for this is about an efficiency of like a car manufacturing thing, and you have to kind of sometimes set up like putting cars out there, but then your opponent might come in and steal those cars. So that interplay works really well, and this is still my favorite Lacerda to date.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite as well, and we've seen the new one come out since we purchased this, the Kanban EV, and it looks great, and I love the artwork, but I like this one. I like how colorful and busy it is, and it just feels like it kind of fits the theme of it. So I really do enjoy this, and yeah, and it's my favorite Lacerda too.
And I like that this older one had a bit of a cheaper price tag as well.
Yes, that was also helpful.
And that is my number 75.
My number 74 is Hive, and this almost never happens with me, but at some point we just threw away the box and stuck with the little bag, because this has traveled around the world with us. We've had this game in I don't know how many different countries, and the great thing about it is you can just play it anywhere. It doesn't need a board. The pieces is these nice chunky like Bakelite pieces that are waterproof and heavy enough, well, plenty heavy enough that they won't blow away. And it's just a super simple 2-player only abstract game where you've got these different insects. All the different insects have different powers, and you got to surround the opponent's queen. So it happens, usually fairly quick, although it is thinky, and it's kind of insect chess, and I just really dig it.
Yeah, and when we first started playing, Shawn had already played it for years, and then our first game, I lost like right away. And it took a while, I think, for you to convince me to play again. And then bit by bit, as I've been getting better and better, and we've been more equal opponents, it has been really enjoyable to kind of figure out the strategies and kind of get yourself out of a tight spot.
And Jess is like a master of the beetles. She loves the put the beetle on top of my queen strategy and then just step down at the last second is the big thing. So I'm always playing, don't let her beetle get near my queen, becomes the big game. But just it's one that we just kind of keep playing and will continue to travel with us. And that is my 74.
My number 74 is Imperial Settlers Empires of the North. And this has a lot of kind of deceptive complexity given the art. I love the art style, but there's a pretty kind of like deep game here. And a key part of it is it's made up of, for the base game, 6 very different factions. And all of them really do feel so different when you're playing. Your goal for it is there's a little bit of worker placement as you put your tokens out, but then you're also kind of collecting cards and doing building your tableau. But some are really aggressive and will really kind of go after other people's resources. Other ones will really be all about shipwrights. And so exploring the differences in the asymmetry has been a real fun part of getting into this game. So much so, we've picked up a few of the expansions.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little kind of corners into this game and a lot of different things going on, but with like surprisingly kind of simple rules. Not like so simple, but certainly not as heavy as there is stuff going on under the hood. And it is cool how they've taken each of those little corners and then used it to really push out with each one of the different factions.
Yeah, I feel like I could play this so many more times than we've played it. I feel like we still only kind of scratched the surface of that. And it is my number 74.
My number 73 is Nemesis. And Alien is one of my ultimate favorite movie series, and this is basically Alien the board game. There have been Alien board games, which are fine, but I would still say this is the best Alien the board game. And really, you're in a little ship, and it's tight quarters, and you got to go around and explore it, and there's aliens, and they are trying to kill you. And it's interesting because it's a co-op game, and it can, if you want, have a traitor mechanic as well. But it feels like it's hard enough that you don't really need that. And for 2 players, it doesn't make any sense because it's like, well, I'm pretty sure you're the traitor. I'm not the traitor. So we never play with that. I think we played with it once. But even just the co-op with just the nicer cards and the nicer rolls, there's oodles of tension in this game. And it really is fun to explore that ship.
Yeah, and I think the part of the tension is the production value of the aliens. Those miniatures, as the longer the game goes on, and the more you're kind of just like running away from the aliens, and they're kind of starting to surround you, it gets kind of scary. And there's not a lot of resources, so you quickly kind of run out of bullets and end up just kind of like trying to punch these giant aliens.
Yeah, they're not miniatures. These are like bigatures. They're like 3 or 4 times the size of your character, especially like the queen alien who's trying to get you and you're trying to get into that escape pod before they get you. Or just like set fire to the ship to the parts you're not in. And it's really tense. And that is my 73.
My number 73 is the crew, specifically Mission Deep Sea. So this is kind of the second version of the crew, and they've tweaked it. They've improved little things and made it just that much better. And I love playing the crew. It's a cooperative trick-taking game, and on the box it's just listed as 3 to 5 players, but so far we've only played it at 2. And they do a really clever way of doing that where the bot kind of has half its cards being visible. So the captain is the one that has to choose their cards. And I really like that element to it of having the shared information between the two of you and trying to like figure out which card really needs to get played.
Yeah, I think it might be a case of like we just don't know what we're missing, so we don't know any better. But having only played it at 2, it's great. Like I think it could easily just say 2 to 5 on the box. I don't think people would be that disappointed because it's probably different, but yeah, it works well. We bought the second one, played all the way through the first one, so it's working for us.
Yeah, because the first one's about 50 missions, we probably logged like over like 70 missions total between the two crews, so that we do really like it. And that is my number 73.
My number 72 is Shakespeare, and we've been tracking this bad boy down for years, and I was very excited to finally get it, which probably bumps it up my list a little bit. But honestly, it's a great game. And if you're into Shakespeare, it's even better because it's got all of the different character cards with the different characters from the plays. And I'm like obsessed with Shakespeare. We go to all of the Globe plays every year. That's one of the reasons we love living in London. And it does kind of capture Shakespeare, to be totally fair. But it does capture the idea of kind of running a theater. And it's this really cool card tableau building game. It's got a few different kind of extra twists within that that I think really makes it worth playing.
And I have heard that the expansion adds a lot to it. So if you do see the backstage expansion available anywhere, please do let us know because we already like this a lot and we would love to track it down.
We really, really would. But that is my 72.
My number 72 is First Rat. And in First Rat, you are moving up a one-way track, which sounds really simple, but there is a little bit of decision making along the way. There's various like comic books you can collect and various other tokens that give you bonuses, but your main goal is as you go along, you're kind of collecting this junk to build your rocket ships and to race up the track to become kind of one of the first rastronauts and fly into space. And this is one we've been playing a lot of recently. And I've just loved kind of that decision making of what spaces to get and which bonuses and how it all works together.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the main decision you've got really is you move one rat or you move a bunch of rats. And if you move a bunch of rats, they all have to end up on the same spaces. So that's how you do these big crazy combos is you just kind of time your little rat posse slowly moving up the track. And Jess has nailed this. I will tell you, we played this last weekend with some friends. She got a higher score than all 3 of us put together because this is really just about being efficient and seeing the goal, and you are terrific at that.
I don't think I could replicate that because you can only, if you land on a space as another player, you have to pay them cheese. So there is a little bit of kind of blocking of spaces. But this one's been a lot of fun, and that is my number 72.
My number 71 is King Domino, and I kind of went back and forth about whether to go with this one or to go with King Domino Origins, which is the newest version. But I decided, you know what, I'm just going to keep it old school, and I got a bit of an inkling that Jess might go with the other one anyway. But King Domino is great because it's so simple. Basically, you're just playing dominoes. So you can explain to it, like I've explained the game to you right there. And you're just building a little 5x5 grid, and then you got to match different kinds of lands to same kinds of lands. And it's nice because you actually see this little kind of kingdom that you build out, and the different pieces have different things on them, like sea monsters and dragons and all these different things. So you can kind of feel that as well while you try and kind of build the perfect 5x5, which is harder than it seems, and get these nice little lands all matched up.
And it works great kind of at 3 to 4 players, but I really like the 2-player version because with 2 players you get 2 people, so how you draft, you might be able to do kind of 2 tiles in a row, but you're also able to kind of do the 7x7 grid for an extra challenge, which is great.
Yeah, the 7x7 does feel like a real kind of it's a much bigger game, and it's generally the way that we go now. We're kind of hardcore king, not to brag, but we 7x7. And this is my number 71.
My number 71 is Explorers of the North Sea. And I really like games that you're building out the board as you go, so that every time you play, it's always going to be a bit different. And on this, each turn you play a tile that has water or land. And so some of your islands end up being really big some games. Sometimes you just have lots of little islands. And then you have different Viking goals. And so just the element of building it out and then trying to pursue different routes. It's just a really fun game.
Yeah, I love any game where you're building out the space. Like we just talked about with King Domino, I like when you've got that nice thing that you've built at the end. And this one's cool because you're building it together. And I love Shem Phillips games just in general. And I would say this is probably my favorite of the North Sea trilogy, as good as Raiders is. I would still pick this one. I think it's kind of the underdog favorite for me.
Yeah, and the expansion for this one is yet again kind of ups it in my books too. It just makes things like bringing the animals back a little bit easier and a few extra elements. But that is my number 71.
And that is it. That gets us pretty much to the end of the 70s. Next time we're going to be starting at 70 and counting down to 61. And we said off the top that we keep on missing games, and you definitely had 1 or 2 in there that I'm thinking, I don't know if I've got that, and I should maybe have that. So we're probably going to have a little bit of a catch-all at the end of this.
But have you played any of the games that we talked about? And what do you think? Do you also enjoy playing them? But really, commenting, liking, subscribing, all of that really does help us out. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you for the next one.